Hello. I wanted to take the day today to speak through my project that I've built recently. This would be a little demo opportunity, so you can have a look at the video behind the code. If you haven't been to the code yet, it can be found on my GitHub, just here. And if you're here just primarily through the YouTube video, then welcome, and please have a little look at the GitHub if you're interested in the nuts and bolts behind everything. So with that in mind, let's have a little discussion about what this all is and what it's about. So as it says here in my about section, this was actually a challenge I was given for a job interview. So I interviewed for a job recently during the COVID lockdown, and a part of the challenge that I was given was to create a project in Laravel. Now the reason why I was that was chosen was because they use Laravel as part of their development package, and they I made them aware that I didn't know Laravel, but they liked my tenacity, they liked my enthusiasm and dedication to to what I do, so they gave me the opportunity to at least create something. And I went off and started building a simple Laravel page, and I contacted the developers a little bit more behind the project that are working there at the time, and I said, what stack do you use? What is your full stack? I want to get a better idea of how you operate, and they made me aware that they use a combination of Vue, Jetstream, Inertia, Tailwind CSS, and they also use MySQL databases behind the scenes, for data storage purposes. So I thought I'll go down that kind of down that route, use the same stack as them, so that when they viewed my project, it would be familiar to them in terms of the layouts and structures. And again, Vue, Tailwind CSS, and Jetstream are something that I've never used before. So with that all aside, we shall quickly pop into the front page and see what it looks like. So here it's really simple, just a nice white screen. Now to be honest, I was only given a week, and I was told not to go overboard with the design and stuff like that. It was just primarily to demonstrate that I had coding knowledge. It wasn't so much of a front end design thing, it was more just a can you do this and can you do that. But as a little added extra, I did create my own little logo, just for something interesting. Now here we have two buttons. Well, did I say two buttons? We have two inertia links, so they're not anchor tags, they're actually inertia links. So if we pop into the code behind the scenes here, I've got a few things open just to get this started. Here we go. So if we look here, we have an inertia link rather than a standard anchor tag, and behind the inertia link we have a reference to a route called login. So in my routes page there is a section called login. So if I pop back into my browser and click login, we can see that the addition of the login domain is added here. And the option to log in is here. Now you can see that this is already actually pre-populated, and the reason why that is because it's currently running on I should have opened this earlier, so I'll quickly do it now. It's currently running on a MySQL database in the background. Now if I quickly connect to that and open it, here we have a few tables, and inside that table we have a list of users. So if we look at our users table like so, we can see that myself and an encrypted password are included in the MySQL database in the backend. The way that's being called in, if you're interested, is through the env file in the background just here. So what I've done is I've if I can find it, it's a reference to MySQL. It's got the host name, the port, the database name, the username, and then just a very simple password. I wasn't going to go for anything too crazy because again it was just a project about demonstrating the ability to learn something new and quickly. And again I was given a week, but the first day of it was really just researching what Laravel actually was. So in essence really it was 6 days that it took me to do this. So yeah, so that takes you to that link, and if we pop back here we've got another link, another inertia link in the welcome page, that another inertia link that takes you to the register page, and it uses an image as the way of demonstrating how to get there. And it's also got alt tags as well. That wasn't required, but you know, I wanted a little bit of accessibility in there, you know, so I decided to include that as well. So if we pop back in, we can see we've got the register, and again we click it and there we have register. Oh blimey, we'll do that again. And here we have register just here, and if you know we click here, I actually believe I have a pre-populated might not, that'll be on my laptop, I do apologize. Here, so for instance, we could just say Tony Roberts, for instance, T Roberts at Gmail, Gmail, not whatever that was, gmail.com, without the little comma, because that won't really work. So trobertson@gmail.com, let's make that capital, just a bit more, and we just put password as the password, and then we'll do it again, password. So I would definitely would encourage you to do that in real life. So, and then we click register, and now we have Tony Roberts. Just I'll quickly save that so I can get back to it easily. We have Tony Roberts now as a member of our blog. And just to mention, this is, I should have mentioned this earlier, this is a blogging platform that I built. I decided to build a blogging platform. So it's just a very simple, I guess you could liken it to Twitter, I guess, or Facebook. It's just a very, very simple blogging platform. Very, very little in terms of design. Again, this wasn't a design challenge, this was a coding challenge. If there's a front-end challenge, of course, you know, if you look at my other projects, you can see that I've gone quite into detail with the design aspects of a lot of what I've done in the past. But having demonstrated that in the past myself, you know, I decided not to go down that route, and instead I just focused primarily on the code behind the scenes. So we've now registered Tony Roberts. So if we pop into my database here and we refresh everything, pop back into my users table, and here we have Tony Roberts is now in our database, exactly when he was generated as well. So now we got the back end working, the SQL database working, and we have a very simple front end. And if we pop here into our blog, which is where we're gonna really the meat and bones of this project is, so let's get in there now. So here in the blog, we can have a little look at a few things we've got. So we've got a few text entry areas here, and we've got a button here. Now this is actually styled in Tailwind CSS. Now the interesting thing about Tailwind CSS is that it differs to Bootstrap in the sense that it's tough for me because I like it and I don't like it, because Bootstrap for me is very, you know, what you see is what you get. It's very simple. Button default, button alert, you know, it's very, very simple. However, with Tailwind CSS, I find it to be quite busy, and I'll show you why I feel that. So if we find my button, here we go. So button here is BG, big purple 800, I guess referring to the tonality of the purple, and then text grey 200, referring to the text inside the button itself being a light grey colour, hence why it's 200. It's on the lighter end of the scale. Now you can pop onto the Tailwind CSS website and see the documentation. I believe I have a copy of it actually, or I did have a copy of it. Let's have a little look. Tailwind CSS button. So actually what we bit better, thinking about it, would be Tailwind CSS colors. Obviously it should be slightly American way, but that's fine. So you can see here that the colors have different levels of tonality based upon the number, the corresponding number. So the higher the number, which goes up to 900, between 50 and 900, the higher that number, the more intense the color. So that's the way that works, if you're interested in that kind of aspect. So here we've got quite a dark purple, and here we've got quite a mild tone grey, and then the button itself is rounded, and then on hover, what will happen is the purple itself will turn into a lighter shade of purple, and the focus will be, it will, you know, outline none. So if we pop here, we can just see that it just simply highlights it. There's nothing really, it doesn't grow, it doesn't change it, it just merely changes the actual color of the button. It's just some very, very simple user interaction. They you know, they know that the button has a, you know, has a result to using it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pop into my database and we're going to look at my posts section. So if we go here, we can see we've got an initial post here called "This is a tester post." You know, when it's created at, and the body of the post and things like that. And that's exactly what this is here. So if we pop back into the code behind the scenes, we can start having a little closer look at that. So the first thing we do is we have a form. This is encased within a form, all the way down to here. So that contains everything pretty much within the page that has anything to do with the post. So everything inside this container just here is encased in a form. Now this form is a post method, so it's posting information. It's adding information rather than deleting it or editing it. It's posting information to the database. And then we have an action called blog action, and the way we get to that is if we go to our web. I'm trying to find where it is. Here we go. So we have a post here, a root post called blog action, and that's from our blogs controller, and that's in our method called store in our blogs controller. So here's blogs controller, and store is just here. And so what we do is we create a new string called posts, and we make that equivalent to a new post. And a post is simply a model here with a title and a body, and we make the title equivalent to the title, and we make the body equivalent to whatever's entered into the body field just here. And then once that's been completed, we just simply redirect back to the blog URL just here. So it's just a very, very simple little system when you click the button there. And if you're interested about the post table as well, what happens here is that it has a user ID. It has a title and a body. So the user ID is an auto-generated integer. Well, it should be an auto integer. That's something that I probably should have worked on in the future, but you know, that's more kind of future development purposes. And this will be open to change in the future as well. I will be working on this project more as time goes by to continue my Laravel development experiences, but unfortunately, you know, I can't work on my personal projects as much because I'm now working full-time, so it's a bit more difficult to be able to balance the two. But you know, when I do get spare time, I will certainly be working on it. And there's also some timestamps here as well, just to show the database when they're created, just for an extra functionality, I guess. And then we also have the ability to drop a schema as well if necessary. So now we have in our blog controller, we might as well also do this. We have the ability to delete a post, and if we delete it successfully, it will return a success. Now, what I did was I must mention that I'm currently displaying this video on my PC, but I built the project in my laptop. So essentially what I did was I downloaded it to my PC and then just started running it because I already had MySQL Workbench and Visual Studio Code on my PC anyway. But on my laptop, I used Postman for my APIs, and we'll discuss the APIs a little bit more in a minute. But just know that the destroy function here is linked into the a REST API that I created in the background. So that's basically how that works. So what happens is a user will enter their title, they'll enter their body, and then what will happen is that will be sent to the database here and stored. And then what will happen then is, if we pop back into our blog, we have a list of recent posts just here. Now, what the recent posts does, shall I say, is it uses a for loop. And what it's doing is it's looking for individual posts in the posts themselves in the post database, and the key here is the post body, so that's the main key to this entire structure. So if we go back to my blog, we see here that we have the body, we have the title, and then we have when it was posted, which is when the timestamp comes in handy, but we'll look at that a bit more shortly. And then what we hear is we have an H5 tag with a title, and inside here we demonstrate what the title is, and then we also have the a small text of created at, and then it just says posted, and then when it was created. And then it also uses Moment. Now Moment is a plugin which can be used to format dates and times. So what I did was essentially is I wanted to know how long it was posted from this very moment, which is quite a common way of doing things actually. You know, if something was posted quite a few days ago, then oh, pardon me, what a time to sneeze, eh? If it was you know, posted, you know, 19 days ago, as it was in my case, and then it will use the day from today, and it will compare that, the current day, to the day that it was posted, and then return the number of days that have passed since then as a integer. So it's a very, very nice little system actually. Very plugins are, when it comes to Laravel, one thing I really enjoyed was the extra plugins that could be used to really increase the functionality. And then here we have a few scripts going on in the background as well. So the first thing we're doing is we're pulling in the basic app layout. So if we go to, I'm just trying to find my layouts, here we go. If we go to the basic layout, this is the layout. Now the layout essentially really is just the nav bar just here. That layout is consistent on each page. So again, even though this wasn't really about creating anything that was you know, what's the word I'm looking for, following specific usability or accessibility principles and things like that, I still wanted to kind of stick to those ideologies, because that's something that I've done throughout my time coding and working on any project, whether it be web applications, web pages, or even just simple programs that I'm coding in something like C# or Java. So yeah, it's just kind of habitual, I guess, to follow those principles even when I'm not told to, you know, just that as a way of good practice. So we also, these just use Jetstream links, and these Jetstreams just, you know, these Jetstream links just link to the dashboard, the blog, and we'll come back to Telescope later, and I would explain why Telescope's there and what Telescope is if you haven't seen it or used it before. It's quite an interesting little thing to add into your project, especially if you're working in a small team and you need to, you know, keep track of what's going on in the on your page. So that's pulling in simply the nav bar from the apps layout, and then it's using the Moment plugin. You know, it's pulling in that Moment plugin so we can use it here. And then we have some defaults, you know, the app layout as a default, and then we have some data that we're passing through. We have a CSRF token so that the information can be updated on the fly. And then we have the moment itself being pulled into the data section, and then this is where the most important thing is. So this is where the posts are coming from. The posts are being pulled in from data, the data itself. The posts are initially an array. It's a unnumbered array, so it's you know, it's not defined upon creation. And then an individual post within that posts is consisting of a title, a body, when it's created that. And here we can see that's where they use just here title, created that, and body, and that's simply how they turn up here. So it pulls that information from the database and then uses the controllers to pull in the information from the database and then return it back into the main page. So nice little simple system again. And then we have just a simple copyright thing that's built in with the program as well. And also we have the API posts. Now the reason why this is here is so the post will be displayed on the page. If I remove that and try to rerun it, well, they usually do disappear. I don't know why that's happened. I think I know why. It's because I've been working in MVC.net recently, ASP.NET MVC, and usually you can just delete something and then just refresh it, but you can't do that here. You have to rerun the server itself, which is fine. I'm not going to do that because that'll take longer than required, and this this has already been quite a long video for those who have made it this far, but of course if you're interested in the nuts and bolts behind how this kind of project works, then it's always worth watching the extra few things. So we've covered quite a lot of this here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off with well, before we do that, we'll look at the telescope. So earlier I made a reference to something here called telescope within the nav bar. Now telescope is a extra plugin you can add in to your project. If we go into my routes here, we can see that I have a route which is pulling in the plugin, pulling the plugin through and rendering the telescope directory, and giving it a reference name of telescope, and it's getting that telescope directory as well. So if we click here, we can see that it's referencing telescope itself just here in the session details. So if we open a link in a new tab, here we go, telescope requests. Because we're opening that within our blog, it appears as a pop-in, but if we pull that out separately in its own separate tab, then you can see it has the actual directory name just here. Based on what tab you're on, it will change just there. But I decided to embed it directly into my program, so it still keeps the same blog. It just for just so it's nice and simple to get to, so you're not switching about pages too much, so you can just switch between it nice and simply. Now you can see here that this telescope, what it contains basically is it contains a list of the requests that have been made throughout your page. So for instance here, I've had various 200 status codes on the posts and stuff, but I've had a few 404s from things that were once there that no longer exist, and I should have removed them, but to be honest I didn't notice them until I'd created Telescope and started using it. But it goes into a little bit more detail about where it is and why it's not working and the response that you receive and the errors, and it is ever so useful. So if you get anything out of this, it would be worth auditing your pages with this as well to find out what's going on in the background. If I was to be working on this project more, I'd be using this myself to work out, be looking for BGSVG and be like, right, okay, well I don't use that in the project, so I might as well get rid of it. And there we go, we've increased the page load times substantially already. Those milliseconds don't sound like much, but they do count, for user experience. Every millisecond counts, it's the way you got to look at it. And we have a lot of references to that SVG file here, so it's very important to be able to weed out the bad things when they happen. And then we have models here that have been retrieved, any queries that have been made, select everything from posts, for instance, when the post was used. And again, for the particular company that I was interviewing for, Telescope was part of their stack, and they used Telescope to audit their the pages that they created to find out if there was any issues. A lot of this for me isn't filled in, but it tells you a bit more about the cache in the background, any events, any exceptions, gates, logs. You can have a mail system here, models, notifications, queries, redirectories and views. So it's all very, very useful, and you can refresh it real time as well to see if there's anything changed. You can currently monitor things, and you can pause the service itself if you want to make some changes and then come back to it later and refresh it. So it's quite a useful little system if it's something that you wish to use as a business yourself. So with that in mind, I'm going to now go into the last thing that I did in this project, because it's become quite a long video now, and I appreciate that, but it is in essence quite a complex project. So what I can do is I can close down all these now. I think I've covered the dashboard view, I've covered the blog itself, the telescope functionality, I've discussed what happens when you the action when you add to the blog, and when you store it, and this is just a simple login and register page. This is where everything this is the splash page where everything begins. So we can close that down now because we're done with the roots. The user, this is quite important to mention as well. So in terms of relational database, linking the users to the posts, it just simply says that a user can have many posts here in terms of relational database structure, and that can be done within Laravel itself. So I'm just basically saying return this being user, return this user, and this user has many posts. They can have many posts. They can't just a user can post as much as they want, so it's good not to restrict them. So it's important to have as many relational connection just there. So we can get rid of that, and then we discussed the post is just consisting of titles and bodies. Blog controllers, we've discussed how they work, and we will come on to the delete function shortly within our API, so I'll keep this open. We've discussed how the directory here in the background works, linking the database to the system. If we quickly pop into my database, we can see my database is indeed called McGrath-B89, and the name of the actual schema itself, or the username, sorry, is root, and the name of the password is also root. A little bit lazy on my end, but again, it wasn't anything, and if there are any API keys as well, they can be added down here as well, if required. But again, that was something I did more in the background using Postman instead. Postman is an app where if you create a REST API, you can test those APIs using a piece of external software called Postman, and I don't have that software on here currently, so I can't show you how it works, but Postman's really useful. If you do create a REST API, you can test those posts, get post requests, for instance, just through that, rather than having to do it within your project itself. It's just a nice little additional function. I spoke about the welcome page, just simply the login and the login and I should say register logo. There you go. Quickly change it. Takes a few seconds. And with an alt tag of register. So it's always important to keep an eye on your projects as well. Something as simple as that can be missed, but it's always good to check back and see if there's anything wrong. Always troubleshoot your own projects. And then, but again, in terms of troubleshooting, this is just to demonstrate the fact that I could learn Laravel, and I did, and also learn Vue. As you can see here, these are Vue files, and Inertia as well, through the use of Inertia links and things like that. And we've also discussed the actual blog itself, so we can get rid of that. And we can finally move on to how the API works in the background, if you're interested in the REST API. So here we have the posts here where they can just be validated, so it requires a title, it requires a body, and if those aren't provided, then the post will simply not work. And then we have a create, where the post is created with the title and body as it was before. And now we have our put request, where we can add data into our database. We can add an additional title, we can add an additional body by updating it, and then we can also delete posts as well, in very much the same manner as we did before. And yeah, that that just references what's going on in here in this destroy function as well. So when it's deleted, it will call that destroy function and be done like that. But in order to test the API in the background to make sure it's working, I created a simple REST API just here with a get post, get post. Well, this is just getting all the posts, and this is adding a post. This is editing the data, and this is deleting it. Using CRUD, create, update, read, delete. So creating a post, updating a post, reading the post itself, just here, returning the post, and then deleting the post when required. And again, I use Postman to test that in the background. So what I also could do, which is quite important to mention, actually, I know it's been quite a long video, but I really do feel I should mention it, is that when I'm testing it in Postman, I can actually generate my own API tokens for the for CRUD. So I can create, I can generate an API for create. So if I was to put, create request, for instance, what it does is it generates an API key for me to pass into Postman for extra security validation. And once that's created, you can edit the permissions, create, read, and you can also delete that particular request as well. So API tokens can actually be activated in the project. I'm not entirely sure where from, because I've not worked in this project in quite some time now, but I know somewhere in the project you have to basically allow the use of an API, the API structure in the background. And once you do that, you'll be given this extra option here of API tokens, which you can generate for the use of CRUD, basically. And then you can also edit the profile as well, change the password, enable two-factor authentication. You can log in, but this is bundled in. I can't take credit for this this part of the program because this is bundled in to Laravel and Inertia. In fact, and Jetstream. So it's not something that I've built on a bespoke kind of end. It's something that I learned how to pull in and bring in. So it's something that I need to know how to do, but it's an added feature, so to speak. So I think I've gone into enough detail here about the stack and what I've done. If you're interested further in the code about what it does, it can all be seen here. You're free to download it and have a look. You can see here it uses a mixture of PHP, Vue, and then the others being the Tailwind CSS and the Inertia and the MySQL database in the background and the REST APIs that are going on. So it's just kind of noticing that there's a few other things going on there in the background as well. So yeah, I just really want to take the time to thank you for watching this video. If you've made it to the end, I'm absolutely astounded because there was a lot to cover, and you must clearly be very passionate about coding, or be very interested about this particular thing. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day, and I shall see you in my next video. Thank you.